glad to finally see the offices.
Yeah, we're glad you finally came to New York to come visit us, girlfriend. This is a good thing. This is a really good thing.
Except it's pouring.
Well, you know, we try. We try. So your new novel, Driftwood Summer, takes place, it's set in a bookstore. Now, what had made you decide to set your book there?
You know, I took my two favorite things, a bookstore and a beach, and I thought, you know, if I'm going to spend another year and a half writing a book, I'm going to put it somewhere I love. So I took those two things, and I combined them, and I didn't purposely mean for so much of the novel to end up in the store itself, but I would bet, without counting pages, that 80% of the novel takes place in the bookstore.
It does. And what I really enjoyed is there are a lot of book clubs that meet at this bookstore. And I just love that you have different themes. I mean, I think booksellers could actually learn what to do with book clubs.
Those are great themes.
I think they're great themes. And great names. Now, how did you come up with the names for all these book clubs?
You know, I listened, but when I was on book tour last year, I knew I was writing this book. And so I would interview the books. So, you know, I would go to all the beautiful bookstores, and I would interview the bookstore owners and say, what book clubs do you have? What are they reading? Why do they read it? Why do they meet? And they would tell me the funniest stories, which, of course, I used. And
you changed the names to protect the innocent,
absolutely. Right? And you know, the names of the book clubs enthralled me. And in the book, there's a big bookshelf behind the counter that tells the name of the book club and what book they're reading. And I saw that in a couple of stores, and I just took note of some of the really funny names, and I used them. So
wonderful.
It's fun.
Now, when you talk to book clubs through the years, which I know that you've done a lot of, do you learn a lot about your books when you're talking to the book clubs?
That is such a great question, because I always say that my favorite thing about talking to book clubs is this weird alchemy that happens. It's like this magic where they tell you how much they loved a theme that you really hit on, that you have to pretend you did on purpose. And so I always go, yes, I totally meant to hit on the theme of redemption. When I, of course, you know, and that is the beautiful thing about the kind of relationship between a reader and an author, that they don't necessarily get exactly what you thought you meant. And in the discussion, that comes out because they're telling you what meant the most to them, instead of me telling them what they're supposed to get out of it. So I never enter a book club thinking, okay, tonight I'm going to talk about X, Y, or Z in this novel, because they always got something different out of it than I did, and that's magical to me. So that is my favorite part of book clubs, is what they get out of a book that I knew was there, but I probably wouldn't have gone in talking about. But it's something wrong in them that was true, and we end up talking about it for an hour, and I wouldn't have even brought it up. So I let them tell me what they want to talk about instead of me telling them what I want to talk about.
You know, I had the pleasure of seeing you last summer. You were at a library down in South Jersey, and you were sitting talking, and I remember these women were so involved with your books. They were so emotionally engaged with your books. And I remember the one woman was just telling you story after story of what happened. And I know you've mentioned a lot that the power of story is so important to you. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and what you've seen and share with us?
Absolutely. I think that for me, I always say for me, because I don't want to generalize, but for me, I've always looked at life through the lens of a story. And I often say, half joking about myself, that I think I see life a little bit backwards or upside down or inside out. I'm not sure what it is. Where I've always kind of looked at life as a story, where other people look at story through life. Like some people will read a book and look at it through their life. I almost do the opposite. I look at a life circumstance and see it through a story. So I think even from a very young age, I saw life a little bit backwards or upside down. That might have messed me up. I don't know, but it's probably why I write. So I think that I like to have what I call a lot of emotional honesty in my stories. Because I feel like if somebody's reading them, I want it to ring true for them. I don't want it to just be another story. I want them to be looking at it through their life experience. So one of the most rewarding things for me is when I talk to a group and a woman will say, when my husband died, that's exactly how I felt. How did you know that? Well, I don't know. I've never had a husband die. Right. I hope I never do either. But, I mean, that doesn't mean I couldn't go there. So that is my favorite thing with people. And then they want to tell you their story.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by life as a story. So they read a story that wasn't necessarily true, but it was true enough for them that then they want to share their story. So
I could just see how if groups were speaking with you, it's a back and forth kind of experience. It's you are the author, but by the same token, you are the reader at the same
Absolutely.
time. And I always felt that whenever we've spoken about your books, I didn't feel like it was coming from a different source. It was totally informed coming from you.
Well, because I feel like it's a back and forth. There's almost a dialogue, is the word I'm trying to find, between the reader and the author. If the author is open to that. If I don't go in with a presupposed version of what you should think about what I wrote, then we can have a dialogue about what it meant to them or didn't mean to them, or why what I meant didn't come through. It's definitely a dialogue. It's not about what I think it should be about.
So was this book based on any particular bookstore? I know somebody is going to ask that. Say, were you at this bookstore, or is this just a bookstore that came out of your imagination?
It's totally a bookstore out of my imagination. But just like sometimes a character is a conglomeration of people, sometimes the best friend in one of my novels will be a conglomeration of all my best friends or something like that. It is definitely a mesh of all my favorite bookstores. But because it's coastal, doesn't mean that part of a bookstore that wasn't coastal isn't included. Some of my favorite bookstores have been coastal, but that's just because when I go on book tour, they keep me on the coast most of the time.
Because you write these books
because they're coastal.
And they come out in June.
And they come out in June, and they're beach, right, exactly.
And I don't think going to the beach in June is a bad thing.
No, that is the key.
Just don't write Alaska in January.
No, not so much. I might have 2 people showing up.
Exactly.
That'd be really nice, though. But the stores that are down there tend to have the same feel, even though they look nothing alike.
Right.
I made the store look like what I would want it to look like if it was mine. So, and it does look a bit like Page and Palette in Fairhope, but not enough that it's the same. It's just, that's what it would look like for me if I had my own bookstore.
That would be your feeling.
Yeah, an old house with rickety shelves and artwork around and a coffee shop and things like that. So,
now, there's sisters in this book, and everybody's going to ask, are these about your sisters?
No.
So we didn't write autobiographical.
I did not write anything about. I know, but and I tried to. This is the funny part. I tried to actually make the sisters as far away from what we're each like. I am one of 3 sisters, and there are 3 sisters in the novel, and I'm the oldest of 3 sisters, and the narrator of this story is the oldest of the 3 sisters. But I tried to make their personalities so opposite of what we're each like that nobody could accuse me of saying, oh, you're telling me what Barbie's really like, or which is my sister, or Jeannie's really like. And I didn't do that. Now, that being said, how can we not use that banter or that kind of way sisters talk to each other? You're saying what you mean, but you might not be saying what you really mean. But she knows what you mean. Right. That kind of thing. So I use some of that family dynamics.
And it's definitely the older sister. You've got that experience down.
Oh, absolutely, because I always know best. So if they would just listen to me, everything would be fine.
Everything would just be fine.
Yeah.
Well, I think the readers were really going to enjoy this book. So it's such a pleasure to be able to talk to you about it. I've enjoyed all your books through the years, but I have to say that I think this one's my favorite.
Really?